That's okay right now.
Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
Even if I'm close.
So that was weird. I don't know why it said that I was not the host previously. Now it works.
Not perfect background.
Why? You don't
Look,
like
I don't have body.
You can be just like a face floating in space. Okay, so that is okay. Are you looking at the document? Yes.
Was.
So, you asked what's up with Solidarity in Holoby Lab. I'll quickly explain Holoby Lab and then we can get into Solidarity card. Holoby Lab, we've been talking with like a group of like 8 people that are also interested in culture and Creative Commons, narrative, co-creation, etc. We started having also conversations every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, and I am translating all of our explorations or exercises to English, and I will probably start doing some exploration sessions in a couple of weeks, which are like longer sessions, like 3 hours.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a small group of people that are interested in talking about these things. So that's cool. And Solidarity card, that's why we're here. We are we participated in a NFT hackathon called Planet Positive NFT Hackathon, and developed a whole other part of it, which was NFTs.
Okay.
To reward participants in the system.
Okay.
So for example, one of the things we thought is, have you heard of DALI, which is an AI that creates images from text?
Okay. I think I might have seen something like that.
So it's kind of recent, like a month ago or two, that it's exploding. But basically, you say it's an AI, and I can say like, oh, I want an image of a phoenix with the wings spread, etc. And just with a description, it will create amazing images.
And it's also based on the aesthetic of human aesthetic. Like it has been, the machine has been trained with a lot of images and painters and really good, the best images that humans like. And so the result is very amazing. Each time you have a very singular image, several propositions, and it's really beautiful. You want to put it on your wall.
It's called Dolly.
Yeah, I'll take.
Can you post the link of that?
Yeah, very impressive. And so it works with text. Basically, you say, I want an image of this, and it creates it for you. And since we are doing conversations that are recorded, we thought, hey,
that could be a reward for people who are doing this conversation. And it would be a translation from the conversation into an image. So you've got an image, an artistic image, very singular, from the authentic conversation and meaningful conversation you had with people. So it could be very interesting.
Yeah. So for example, now we are recording this conversation we're having. And there is a transcript being made.
Yep.
So our thinking is each conversation is unique and people talk about different stuff. So we want to take the transcript of the conversation and put it into this AI, and it will generate an image based on whatever we talked about.
Huh.
And therefore, it's a unique image that is linked to an experience we shared. Therefore, it will be a nice souvenir.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. And then we also, well, we already had in mind this idea to create an NFT that is sort of a passport, your identity. So, in which, since we want to do an alternative to KYC for people that don't have official documents, if we link it to our system, they will have an identity that is represented in this NFT and that they can use for many other services that require an identity.
Huh.
Does that
That's
make
interesting.
sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two things. I think we also came up with other ideas during that hackathon, but those are probably the two main things. And basically now we're thinking the project wants to be more than just about homeless people. It really, I think the main issue is more about society in general, that people are disconnected.
Yep.
That we don't know who the other is, and therefore we use shortcuts and think like, oh, a person that looks like that, the same, I don't know, the same hair color, like a redhead once talked to me badly, so now I hate all redheads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like and the problem is because, and it's natural to take shortcuts, right? But the problem is it's not reality. And we are jumping to conclusions and getting emotional about stuff before even knowing the persons. So for us, that's the real problem to solve. Whether it's for homeless people, refugees, or just any other neighbor that is different from you.
How about left and right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's just become caricatures. Like, oh, if you are on the left, you must be like this. Blah, blah, blah. But people are like a million times more complex than that.
So to me, I mean, I think that's actually a very brilliant and noble problem to solve. And I think about that a lot too, like even in education.
About what exactly?
Well, so a lot of so we're looking at deschooling, and
Yeah.
and a lot of the way kids listen and learn is from each other. That's because the authenticity of that instructor. Oh, it's my peer. What he's telling me, I'm going to listen to. Whereas a teacher, she doesn't know jack. I'm not going to listen to her. Or but if you look at like the really, if you look back on your years and think about all the great teachers or mentors that you've had in your life, what unifying quality made them so great? I have an answer, but I'm wondering if you guys will come to that same conclusion too. I don't know. Do you guys understand? Like, if you look at like maybe you have like two, at least hopefully you have one great teacher. Although I do know, Juan, that you were not very fond of school. But hopefully there's at least one person in your life, at least, whether or not it be a formal teacher, was at least a mentor that stuck out.
Yeah, of course.
And what was that unifying?
I guess that they inspire you to want to know more.
But what about them made you inspired? Like, were you able to converse with them? Were you able to get along with them?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so you enjoyed being in their presence, right?
Also, they treated you with respect, and maybe that's where you want us to head. And they treated you as an equal.
Yeah, there is a communication factor that you received them, you were open with them, right? So a lot of the great teachers and mentors and guides, you view them, you get their message because they communicate to your level very well. Like you're not going to have a great teacher if you don't get what they're teaching.
Yeah.
You know, or at least maybe you think you get what they're teaching, and maybe you're being delusional, but most often they know how to speak into your particular channels, right? So it just comes down to communication. And much like you know, whether it be marketing, telling the story, or listening to the story from the other side, is how do you find that unifying channel? Like, let's say I'm an extreme, like, right-wing neo-Nazi, and you guys are like socialist, you know, people, right? We're not going to get along, but let's say we find some unifying thread. Like, oh, you like the Beatles? Oh, I like the Beatles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, that kind of humanizes things. So it's and whether you're teaching, maybe the subject is where you're resonating at. But I think the hard part is that people are so caught up in the issues that they think define them, that they forget about these other issues that make people human, like music, like food, art, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's activity. And one funny thing that people say, like when you meet people, oh, what do you do? As if your work really defines who you are. And oh, you're an artist? Puh, I'm a lawyer. I don't care about artists, right? Or or I'm a software engineer. I don't care about you being a chef. But and I think we take such a narrow view of that. So when people ask what I do, I really kind of have multiple answers depending on the subject.
Of course.
Right.
And there are always a lot of different possibilities to be and to go out from those things that should define you. Today I had this conversation with a team in a book club. We are reading I Think Like a Commoner, and we were saying exactly that we are saying, the fact that it's not cool to introduce yourself, because each time people will think, okay, oh, you've done that during 3 years, okay, so I will put all the biases that I have about this job on you, and I will make you this identity with what you've done in your life. So it's so hard. I just want to introduce myself as a human and just do what we have to do, and and when we were talking about the fact that children like to learn together, they like to play a lot together.
Yeah.
While they play, that they learn. So yes, how could these conversations in Solidarity Card can become this facilitation to be whatever you want to be and take off prejudice after prejudice, to
go under the surface.
Yeah, and be authentic.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, and I think you raised great points there. Like, were you in the kernel building kernel meeting 2 weeks ago where there was a Sheldon? And they talked about this unprofile. Let me find his name. I think he was part of KB4 or KB3. And he was asking some really, Philip Sheldrake.
Okay.
You remember that name?
Yes, but I think I was not there.
So he actually was bringing in some really great discussions about this whole idea of the Rory and Simon use this term unprofile in this kernel building kernel infrastructure, because it's not like profile is such a narrow and limiting term, like it's rigid. They want to use unprofile because you really don't, we want kernel to kind of build and explore your identity. And we got this really interesting discussion about identity that Philip just loved. Like, he just loved that, the whole fact that the class was named unprofile. And so to kind of get to your point, Pauline, I think it'd be great, like, people love playing games. And I think even in part of the kernel curriculum, they talk about how we used to play games as kids, but as adults, we don't play games anymore. Perhaps it's about getting people to play a series of games that may get much more serious in intent. Like, did you play the glass bead game?
Yeah.
With you did with Andy, and you did. So I did that last week with actually with one of the guys that actually built it.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence LLC, right? Yeah. That was pretty intense. Like, if I didn't have the pre warm up of just it being kernel itself, I don't know if I would have gone that deep or that intense with that game, right? Because you just out of nowhere, you're just some random person, like, well, who the hell is this person? But I was already in a fairly trusted space, knowing that Andy was leading the meeting, and Lawrence, we saw Lawrence and Andy do a demo of it, and that got like super intense. And I'm like, wow, I don't know if I'm smart enough to even like continue that game, because they were going to some pretty deep philosophical, like poetic prose there. But when I played it, I'm like, oh wow, like this actually was pretty good. I kind of surprised myself. But that's like a super intense game. I'm wondering if there's even like a way to start the conversation. You had like the icebreaker. Are there authentic icebreakers?
Well,
maybe.
Yeah.
But it's just, you want to get people down to that level of intimacy, right?
Give some guidelines. It's what we are looking for.
We have developed some exercises in Holloway Lab to do that.
Okay.
Like certain questions, or not really the question, but the way to frame the questions that will lead you to getting to know the other person. Yeah. And that's a whole other part we need to develop also, like how to train people to have good conversations. If it's good.
But maybe the conversation at the end, maybe at the beginning, it's just like, hey, let's play a drawing game.
Yeah.
You know, right? And very, very light. You built that because I think it's you know, just like anything else, it's priming the right, you know, and a lot of it's all about the context. And I think Glenn the other day was saying that Colonel to him became a little bit like church, like the firesides, a little bit like church. It was routine. You come to this, you hear a lightning sermon, and then you kind of mingled afterwards with the rest of the congregation, right? And you know, there was a routine established, but you know, without like Vivek and Andy's kind of guidance, that context would not have been there. So I think if you're trying to create those authentic conversations, there needs to be some type of guiding and framework to get there. And actually, there's an interesting, so that if you want to look at interesting questions, the New York Times most read article.
Yes.
Have you heard about that? Right?
Yeah. We have adapted some of that.
And essentially, it's how to fall in love with somebody in like 46 questions or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you guys ask each other those questions?
No, not yet. Let's do it.
We did a little, but
we already knew each other. Yeah.
We use it for all of the labs.
Yeah, that's one of the things we adapted for Holovi Lab, actually.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Questions are not good.
Sure.
Sometimes,
yeah, but that's just one.
I'm wondering because my brain is evolving because I think a lot about authentic conversations, and to me, there are a lot of questions that annoyed me. I don't want to answer. It's not deep. I want to have questions that questions myself. So I'm wondering, I don't want to create, like, for example, the other day I participated to it was 24 hours of workshop, and it was called Barbell Dialogue, and they created a framework with, for example, it was you had to answer to a question, but you had 3 minutes to answer, and people can't answer to you. Then after the 3 minutes, it's another person who answers, and then another one, and it's just we listen people who answer, and then there is I won't say there is other steps, but at the end we have like 5 minutes of dialogue, and we can just answer to everyone if we want. But it was too much framework, too
rigid.
Yes, too rigid to me. The first dialogue was very interesting. I thought that I felt very connected with the people, but then I was wondering, is it a real connection? Because yes, these people listened to me, but were they agree? Maybe they wasn't agree, and I would love to know if they wasn't agree with what I was saying. And it was a dialogue, yes, where you can't express disagreements. I felt that. I didn't find that for conversation in all the lab. For Solidarity Lab.
Yeah. Well, there are many exercises we can do. But maybe we should talk more about the storytelling now.
Sure.
So basically, the problem is, you notice the moment you mention the part of homeless people, that's the only thing everyone hears about this project.
Okay.
But that is not the whole project. That is just like, I don't know, like 10% of it. And the main objective is what we were saying, to create connection between people, to create social cohesion.
So your go-to market may be the homeless angle, right? That may be what, like, whenever you launch a product
Mhm.
or a movement, I mean, maybe it's really more of, you have to find what is that resonating, what's that resonating voice, and you gotta dominate. Like you're very familiar in the startup world, right? Dominate a market,
Mhm.
but a very very small market, because if you can't dominate, and I guess this is very anti-decentralization. I'm talking about like the whole, how do you build massive like centralized corporations? But but if you look at like movements from like religion to startups, it's like how do you resonate really really well with a certain niche of people? And once you figure out that they become your 1,000 fans, and that it just kind of spreads, right? So your core fundamental may be about
Mhm.
social connection and communication amongst you know diametrically opposed people, or just maybe not even diametrically opposed, but maybe like socially or geographically unknown people where they would never have intersected, right, previously, right?
Yeah.
And how do you create them to uh, to bump into each other, per se? Like in the past, when there were no cars, people would walk. Now, granted, kings and royalty would have guards, but most people, whether you're the town bookkeeper or the butcher, you bump in and walk into each other. But now that we've become more mobilized, motorized, and even digitized, we don't have that bumping in interaction anymore, right? To have that interaction, like I always say, like, yeah, whenever I bump into people in the lines at Walmart, right? Because you're always waiting in line at Walmart, and you're always next to somebody that you've no idea who this person is. Strike up a conversation. What happens there? Um, what is that? What is that? And to me, I was trying to think, like, everybody has a unique message to tell. Yeah, maybe a little jewel or a gem to kind of you know add to your experience. And can you provide a little bit of energy or experience to their lives too? And or it could be a neutral trend. We may not get away with anything. Um, but I think, yeah, that the homeless angle, there needs to be some like strong niche that you're going to try to focus and dominate, knowing very well that you're creating this overall protocol or a mechanism of communication, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think you can. I don't think you pitching that like, oh, we're going to create this universal, social connector like that. Nobody's going to buy into that. Like whatever. Um, there needs to be just a very very niche. Maybe it's niche enough that it's uh, um, maybe it's niche enough that it's only 1,000 people in the world. But if that community is super tight, you're going to learn, you're going to iterate. It's going to be very quick. Maybe that it's just about connecting, scientific researchers with indigenous tribes people, right? I don't know. I'm just tossing out examples there, and
Mhm.
or maybe it's connecting forms of like non-binary people with each other, and trying to find if they're across the world, and having them like relate, or even like
Mhm.
people who play video games, they're obsessed with this one, type of video game that's dying out. Although there are probably Discords and Reddit channels for that already.
And
that,
based on what we've talked about this project that you already know, do you think of this as something that would be for you?
Repeat that question again. Is for me?
Yeah, based on what you know about the project so far, do you ever think of it as something that could be for you? That you would use it as a beneficiary also? And maybe forget about the word beneficiary and just say participant?
Potentially. Right. I wouldn't say it would be a top of mind right now. On a scale of like 1 to 5, I would say, I'd be probably neutral, a 3 or a 3.5. Just because I feel like I already have a decent amount of high quality interaction with my family and my friends. And now with COVID more rampant, I would say it would probably been higher, maybe like a 4, just because. And even absent kernel, maybe with a 4.5. But now that we're kind of back out socializing again, I feel like I am getting my social mental needs fulfilled. So I'm not actively seeking additional like fulfillment or guidance from that need.
Do you feel impacted by polarization in the society?
Do I feel impacted by prioritization?
No, by polarization.
Oh, polarization. Yes, I do. And there are people within my own community that I know that I try to talk to them about they definitely don't hold my views. And then when I go out, and wait in the line in Walmart, I try to understand the people around me. Now, if you're saying that I could potentially talk to somebody of a different polarizing view and get to know them, I've got two reactions to that. Like one reaction, like that's just going to get me riled up again, make me just never want to talk to people again, right? That's obviously the bad reaction. Or two, could I have an authentic, heartwarming, engaging response from them? And I'm a bit mixed on that. Simply because what I've seen, in situations like that, I've been put in, myself vulnerable situations. Like let's say my car breaks down, and then some guy like Cyber comes out and helps me, and you have like, oh my gosh, thank you, very much. You're vulnerable. You've got a broken down car. You may be in the middle of nowhere. Somebody comes to help you out. So at that time, it's just kind of a human, humans being kind to each other without any preface or surface tension or whatever of my political alignment or views, right? And I've got pretty liberal views too, right? So yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure how, and I'm still trying to process that, how I would actually handle that. Like, hey, let's say, you got me in the line with Mitch McConnell. I feel like, oh well, I'll take the call, and I definitely will have a lot to say. Whether he would stay on or not, I don't know if he would stay on.
No, but Mitch McConnell is, for you, it's like a cartoon today, You have this idea of who he is and what he represents, etc. But you don't know the real myths, right?
Yeah, I don't.
So, and probably in this project, you would not meet like famous people.
And then actually it's kind of a funny thing. Maybe there are these synonymous, part of that mechanism is that there is a synonymity. And the
Mm.
deeper you go to the funnel, you start revealing who your identity is.
Mm.
So maybe in this characterized character profile, I'm like 0x TFT. I am touch fluffy tail, right? And you don't know you don't even see my face. I'm just like this bunny on the screen. And to advance to that next level, some part of the identity, and both parties have to choose, right, gets revealed, right? So all maybe know are my interests. Like I like to cook, I like to ride my bike, I like, whatever. And maybe it just, you get this alignment, that you're matched up. Oh, you have this one common interest. Yeah.
Okay, so but you're talking about something that would be entirely online, right?
Maybe online or asynchronous or whatnot. I don't know. Just a thought that just kind of came to my head. Like how would I feel trusted? How do I evolve that trust? And maybe you could protect it enough by a synonymous identity, and maybe I've worked its way down to a real identity at the end. And it's up to you, depending on your level of wanting to expose that. And I think there's probably even a hidden level of gamification there, right? Wow, I really want to go to that next level. I want to know who this person is. This person sounds incredible. And as you progress down this funnel, maybe that identity gets revealed. Almost kind of like a blind date, a casual blind date of and if you could control it digitally, you could definitely gate different levels of reveal.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to explore.
But that might be interesting, talking to different people of different polarized options. And maybe it's about, maybe you start silly first. Maybe it's chocolate versus vanilla, like right. And then obviously in the U.S., if you've been paying attention, right, it's about abortion, it's about gun rights, which to me are kind of, I think, I personally think these are silly issues to be arguing about. Like those are just such, people are very passionate about it, but in the end, like those are just symptoms of bigger issues to talk about.
It's not only that, it's also loneliness.
Yeah.
I just found this article from 2 days ago. It says New York trials robot companions for 800 elderly people to combat loneliness.
Oh, wow.
That's fucked up. Like, we have so many people in the world, and you are creating robots to keep company to old people. No.
I mean, that's been going on for some time in Japan now, right?
Yeah, I know. But it's just like isolating everyone and putting a machine in the middle.
Yeah.
And at the same time feeding us information and things to buy.
Yep. Hey, Ahmed, how you doing?
Yeah. Hi, Ahmed. Welcome.
Hey guys, sorry I'm super late to the party. I didn't want
No
to
worries.
disrupt the thought process. I had some interesting thoughts. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. I was just what you said there, Juan. Like, I remember, I can't remember where this is, but I remember there was like an app that was a bit like Tinder, except it was for people who are lonely, and you pay someone to visit you just to keep you company for a while. And I can't remember what part of the world it was, but I remember a few years ago. It might have been, was it Japan? You said, Jason. It might have been Japan. I can't remember.
Could be.
But robots, yeah, that's another level, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's
Like
yeah.
so, but that use case, I think, is definitely, you got to make sure you're clear on your messaging and your marketing. One, Pauline, like, if you're, I guess you could combine, like, hey, if you're feeling lonely, it's like a little bit like,
I mean, that's not the use case for lonely people. No.
yeah. I understand that that could be one factor, that could be one value proposition you could provide in this, broader context there, right? But maybe even providing a service of having homeless people talk to lonely people, and if you're lonely and you think you've got it in the dumps, well, shit, this guy's homeless. He's got way worse than you. You should be good about yourself, right?
No, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You can be a billionaire and still feel lonely and still
Sure.
have a shitty day. It's not about that. Like I know a lot of like rich kids. I went to like a private school in Mexico, so I was like the poorest of the rich, probably.
And the poorest of the rich.
Yeah, and like many of the people that are very rich, like they have no purpose in life, so they are unhappy. And you're like, but you have everything I want to have, right? How can you be unhappy? Well, it's not about what you have.
So what is the root cause of that? What is the root cause of that, of them feeling unhappy and not having a purpose? Like, why is that? Do you think?
Not knowing themselves, probably. Or also, I think in many of these cases, like there is a lot of expectations that come with that privilege. It's like, yeah, okay, so you are born rich, but you have to behave in this way and do this and this and this if you want that is money. Right? I don't know if.
But like I could argue, and I could say,
yeah,
if you're from a poorer background, there's also expectations that your parents were refugees and they came to this country and they said, hey, you better work your ass off and make sure that we didn't come here for no reason. You're gonna do well for the family. So, but obviously and some of them obviously have no purpose, right? Some of them still don't like the fact that their parents said you have to be a doctor, you have to be this. Some rebel, but some don't. But what, like, I don't know why that is. I don't know what makes some people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to say is that it's not about money. It's more about an approach to life, because you can have like parents from that are very rich and that say like, hey, you do whatever you want to do, and we will support you. Or you can have like, for example, what was the prince that recently said like, I'm no longer gonna be part of the royal family?
Oh, Prince Harry.
Exactly, because they impose on him all the shit that he doesn't. That's not him, right? And the result is that now he's completely disconnected from his family, and it shouldn't be like that, right? Why can't you accept him the way he is? And and I feel like in many of rich families, it's a lot like that.
But does he have to accept his family as it is? Also.
Yeah, also.
Of course, yes. It should be in the both way.
But I forgot, why are we talking about this?
I think we're talking about like just stories and like, to me, like I think there's a couple of like, takeaways that need to get ironed out, right? One is, figure out, like you very well know, there's just too much work to be done for any startup, right? It's about finding what's the right priorities.
Yeah.
And I think part of that priority is what's going to move the needle. And I think of that, like, is there a particular demographic or niche channel or maybe groups that you can connect that normally wouldn't connect? Maybe I think that's the whole, like, the value, right? Group people that can you create interaction amongst people that normally wouldn't interact? And what is that? What does that look like, right? And if you could just identify a niche of people that will resonate super well, right? And that will help with the whole decentralized, the marketing and messaging. So, having conversation with homeless people, I've done that in the past, and I live near Baltimore City, which is like the 5th highest murder rate in the U.S. But I do feel a little bit leery sometimes because, like, there could be like people, like the cities, may not be safe. You've seen talking with people, right? So I generally do it when it's very crowded, like in a public market or things like that. And sometimes they have mental illnesses too, right? A lot of times they may not even be able to have a truly, like, coherent conversation. But I think actually some of the more genuine is when you talk to drunk homeless people. They're just on the streets, they're kind of harmless. They're looking for like a cigarette or some money, like, right. Down in New Orleans, right, there was a few drunk people that would hang out and just kind of talking with them. It's just kind of like, you're just kind of chilling right out by the corner. You could be some millionaire and these guys could be just so, just kind of like, people being human again. But everybody may be a little bit buzzed to some degree. But I think it is knowing what niche can you get access to and then really resonate with. And it may or may not be homeless people. Maybe it's elderly Catholic women that are too afraid or lonely. I don't know. I'm not sure what that could be. But I think if you could figure that out, like, hey, maybe you go to nuns, maybe it's a monastery, or maybe it's maybe these are women that want to help out, but they're just too afraid to be in the street talking to homeless people.
I'm not sure, because then that means we are isolating again certain kind of people and assuming they're all the same.
I think you have to, though, right, in order to test out your theories, right? In the end, it's about how can you find data, how can you validate. Maybe your games don't even work at all. Maybe they work great, but I think you need to find a cohort or at least a group, and maybe it's just testing out different groups of people to find that out. To me, it's about I'll give you the example with Uber, right? How Uber took off, right? They did the Uber X, right? They just catered to high-end limousine rental on demand, right, over the app. And then once they worked with the kinks, and they started, going, scaling it out to the masses. Even Tesla, their first cars were like $150,000. They weren't cheap. They're getting more affordable now. I think their cheapest cars now is like $45,000 maybe, which if you actually look at like the entry level luxury, you're looking at 35, $45,000, right? And it's that top down approach, but they started with a niche market first to test that out. I just don't know what that niche is.
Yeah, to me, this niche would look like humans who feel impacted by competition, polarization, absence of solidarity, and that's enough.
In France as well, you could, it could be geographic as well, right? You know, that's more accessible to you. What's easiest for you? If you've got people in your city who you can directly impact, you could start there, and then you can, you know, like Jason says, start scaling from there. But what's the smallest viable audience?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I would want to scale from two opposite ends. The local, geographically local, and the internet.
Mm.
People like you, we are close with you in a way.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Because like Kernel is already a community, even if we are all in different places. So we could apply the barbell strategy, you know, like from one end and the other end.
What's the barbell strategy? I'm not familiar with that.
It's sort of like an investment strategy, which basically it's that like you at both ends, you know.
Diversification, you mean?
Yeah, but not exactly. Like it's like do the both extremes.
Oh, extremes. Okay.
I think, was it like Nassim Taleb, that barbell strategy?
Yeah, I think he's the one that came up with it. I'm
It,
probably explaining it all wrong.
no, I think you're right. I think it was something like, you know, you should, on one side, it's have all your safe bets. So you're the S&P 500, so the index fund, very safe. You get your 8 to 12%. And then on the other side, you can put in a small portfolio of very high risk bets,
Yeah,
such
you're
that
YOLO.
it's got, exactly, yeah. So if it doesn't win, you're still okay because the majority of your portfolio is safe. But if it wins, you've got that asymmetric sort of upside. So, yeah.
And then you put all of it in there. YOLO.
Yeah, you could do that though.
People have success.
And then you'll need solidarity after that. Definitely.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could have. I'm trying to think of where some MVPs that you could do to have set this up, and then you know, in the end, I think that the basis of that MVP is a bit of your go-to market strategy.
We were thinking to start conversations between us, the people in kernel, but one-to-one, recorded.
Okay.
And then the other people can look at them and be like, oh, cool, like Jason talked about this with Juan. And now I also know more about Jason and about Juan. So I want to talk with him also. Yeah.
But who's going to have the time to go through video? Like, even let's say it's recording with an hour. Who's realistically going to sit through that and watch that time?
That's a good question. I don't know.
That looks like a podcast.
Is there like an agenda for or is it just a free flowing conversation like we're having now?
There is an agenda, but we haven't really followed it.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just thinking, you know, if like Jason said, who's going to watch it, right? But if you're very clear in saying, you know, Jason and Juan today are going to talk about, you know, decent, I don't know, something specific.
Okay, yeah.
Then at least maybe you can attract people who are interested in that. But whether that's the audience you're after, I don't know. But if it's just a random conversation about everything, that can be a difficult sell, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. We would generate like a summary, like they talked about this topic and this topic and this topic, like just one phrase. Because, yeah, of course, if you don't know what you're gonna watch, like why?
Yeah,
wouldn't do it.
Yeah, like if you have like a list of podcasts to watch, right? You know, there are two things that I would, you know, one is a topic I want to listen to, right? Relevant to me, and generally in the descriptions you could find that. Then two, are they authoritative enough for me to actually worth my time to listen to them?
Yeah.
And I know I don't have any authority in terms of what I talk about, because all I talk about is kind of very, very, very low reputation scoring. You, on the other hand, may be a little different. But I don't know if people would want to listen to me talk about it.
But many people, for example, people that follow Instagram or TikTok or etc. accounts, it's not really about the content. It's because they have developed some sort of attachment to the person, you know? Or
Yeah, I have no followings.
what about music? Some people are like they're fans of Metallica, and even if Metallica hasn't done anything good for the last 10 years, they will buy every album, you know?
Sure.
It's the same. It's like, oh, it's a conversation by this person, and I appreciate this person, so I will look at it.
So you're talking about brand now, right? You're talking about the brand of the person. So to
I guess you could say.
to get that initial traction, then you need a brand, right? So like how it like yeah, how is the brand going to be built, or are you going to be speaking with people who already have a brand, who already have a following, and you can get their audience?
No, not really. I'm just saying it's something we all do. Like if a friend calls you now and says like, "Hey, let's go out, Ahmed," you're not gonna be like, "Yeah, but what are we gonna do? Is this gonna be worth my time?" Yeah, it's just like no. You already know it's gonna be worth your time because you
Yeah.
are this person, right? So whatever that friend proposes, you're gonna say like, "Hell yeah, let's do it."
But I'm thinking also it could be a need to get to know more someone. For example, I would love to know more about my lawyers right now.
About what?
My lawyers, because they are like lawyers, and I want to know them because sometimes I feel like I'm a bit in competition with them, but I need to be in collaboration, and for that I need to know what they are passionate about, what do they love, how they talk as a friend and not as a lawyer. And I think our meeting would be more relaxed for me if I know them as humans. Yeah. Sometimes it's a need to know people around you. Yeah. I want to know my neighborhood. Who are they? Should I be afraid or?
Should I be?
So I missed the initial bit of the conversation. So what exactly are you trying to achieve?
To reframe the way we talk about this project, because also we already reached the hour. So Jason, if you need to be somewhere else, please feel free to go. But otherwise, of course, let's continue. So originally we said Solidarity Card humanizes and supports people in need through authentic conversations and transparent donations. Right?
Yeah.
Then we noticed like a lot of people forget about the authentic conversations the second we mention homeless people. And a lot of people were like, oh, but you're not gonna record them because like their privacy and blah blah blah, etc., and their rights. And they forget that the whole point of the thing is that these people have no official identity. And that's why we need to record them, to give them a visibility and an identity that can be trusted. And also not only trusted, because we also want other people to care for them. And that is why we want to record the conversations, because the whole point is to create a web of trust and care. There are projects today that are web of trust, but it's only on a technical level. We want a web of care in which you are like, oh, this person who was a stranger to me a few months ago, now I know their name, I know what music they like, I know what food they like, I know their story of the family, whatever, and now I care for this person. And that is the whole objective, really. beyond giving money to homeless people. You know?
Mhm.
And also, if we don't create this web that gives us an alternative to KYC, an alternative method in which to trust someone, we just cannot create the debit cards because of the regulations that exist today in the world. So we cannot even help the homeless people unless we do this web. Therefore, we were thinking like, okay, so how do we reframe this thing, right? And last week we were writing. This is all in
Yes.
the document I shared also. We came up with solidarity. Something is about foster social cohesion and long-term thinking with a compounding web of trust and care that is created through the recording of authentic conversations between neighbors, and which lays the foundations for a citizen-led global basic income. Yeah. Or a longer version was, our mission is to foster social cohesion and long-term thinking so we can transition from the logic of competition to the logic of collaboration. We will achieve this with a compounding web of trust and care that is created through the recording of authentic conversations between neighbors, and which lays the foundations for the following: a citizen-led global basic income, a debit card for all humans that enables them to receive donations and make contactless payments in all shops, and a system to continuously verify the identity of people without official documents or proof of address.
Mhm.
So if you see, that's a very different proposition than
Yeah.
if we start talking about, hey, let's give money to homeless people.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you, like, to me, those are even like
Mhm.
2 or 3 different like points, right? Can you just get the authentic conversation first? That's one. If you can, then can you create this, a web of trust, if um, to provide some feedback, and then maybe the third is actually this uh, you know idealist debit card systems.
Yeah. This is our roadmap actually. We wanted
Oh,
to
that is your roadmap. Okay. Like, if I were trying to test it, I wouldn't try all 3 at once, because that's obviously very challenging.
No, and it's not possible. You need first the web of trust.
Yeah. It's like the network, seller demand. You gotta build things in order. So I'm glad at least I comprehended that much from your stuff. But yeah, no, I wouldn't even talk about, maybe you don't even talk about the homeless or even the debit card system. Talk about just, or maybe you do have the homeless as your first use case. We're going to talk to people that you would never get a chance to talk to. Here is one population.
Yeah.
Have them share your story, and then find here is a safe and kind of harmless way to understand a little bit of humanity that you may have not have gotten the chance to peek into. And then what you may find is that people are like, oh my God, I love this guy. How do I donate? How do I help him out? Right.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't even be upfront about that at all. And have the project morph into that. Knowing very well that's in your roadmap, but focus on the communication part. Because if you can't get that communication part, you're never going to build that web of trust. Can't build that web of trust. You're not going to build your community. You're not going to get that funding and operations to folks.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've helped you guys out. I don't know. Maybe I just validated your initial thoughts.
It's super interesting to to see how what the conversation emerged from our project and how you reset it.
Sure.
So it's very interesting because we don't know how at all how you reset it right now.
So Ahmed, I don't know if one of the questions they asked, like, would you want to talk to somebody, not in your typical circles? And I gave them, I'm like, well, like if it's somebody who's like from a different political spectrum, that may just piss me off and that would not give me joy. But maybe if it's something of a tantalizing offer, like if it's somebody that maybe it's you're in the UK, right, Ahmed? Yeah. Maybe
Birmingham.
it's a chance to talk to people. Whether it's a geographical or maybe it's just a pure social, like homeless versus non-homeless, in a safe, in a safe, reliable manner where I'm not physically threatened because I'm like out, on the streets and homelessness and whatnot, and see what type of empathy and emotions come out of that.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you did that you want to be as frictionless as possible. So maybe the first things that pop up are these like little YouTube 5-minute TikTok video type things of a homeless person just telling them about a funny thing that happened to them or a hardship they had. And you want to test that, right? You got to test, like, does the happy story, did that drive more traffic? Does the sad stories bring more traffic and drive through things? Are you getting a drink for yourself, or are you doing the laundry, Ahmed?
Sorry, no, my wife just asked me to for a quick little cup. So sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you there.
Yeah, I thought, like, what's that green bottle? Are you like making yourself an alcoholic beverage in the middle of the day?
No, this is very liquid.
Wasn't sure if it was like some gin or rum that you were pouring.
Oh no,
That would be nice.
But if that friction is low, like, hey, here, watch this 5-minute video, and you watch him like, oh, wow, that was actually kind of compelling, and then like click here for more. Get your own authentic 5-minute video, or send for like a pen pal, and maybe it's only 3-minute clips or 2. Like, you got to keep it short, and maybe the exchanges are that tight, right? I wouldn't. I think it'd be very frictionful if it was like, hey, spend 30 minutes recording yourself talking to somebody, right? It'd almost have to be like TikTok bites.
I don't know, Jason. We've been talking for more than an hour.
Yeah, but I know you already.
That means that if we choose 5 minutes, that means that it's a conversation that you don't want more than 5 minutes. So we are just. I don't want to do a project like that.
You got to think about the funnel, right? You got to get people involved. How do you build that trust out initially?
Yeah,
no.
I think TikTok is like that fake engagement. Like, people are just dancing and like, oh, look at.
Well, it is fake engagement, but it begins at 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but it will get longer and longer the deeper they get down that. Like, you're never going to get people talking initially if you're not primed, right? How do you prime them?
No, I think what you're saying is you need bite-sized content.
What I'm saying is that you need a funnel, right? So it's about how do you create a frictionless input. By the time you get to the bottom, it could be an hour or 5 hours, or they could even be making day trips to people. But to hook them in the beginning, you're not going to expect them to be going out there for an hour, right? Even with Colonel, we were hyped up. We were interviewed. We had different points of engagement to get pruned into that level of thinking. Then they had the fireside. Then there was Slack, right?
Yeah.
The Slack was a whole thing. You introed yourself, right? So we're getting primed, and then Vivek and Andy are like, "Whoa, who are these guys? Like, why are they talking like this?" Right? This is much more deeper, and then you're getting primed, and then even like the intro, like here, show an item of something and talk about it. We only talked for 30 seconds, right? Now we listened to 30 other people, but we ourselves only talked for 30 seconds. And then you got
Coquette, for example, we talked with her during 5 hours, but we never met her before.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like the way human nature works, it's like it goes from a frictionless wide funnel and it goes all the way. You got to work them down because you're going to get people dropping out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about Joe Rogan or Lex Fridman. I don't know if you know these two characters. But they do podcasts and they do like 3 hours of conversations
Sure.
with someone, and it's an
but
enormous
they're popular people with a very that are a strong opinion about something. They're very knowledgeable about something. Right.
But it's because they go deep that it's interesting. If it was just like 5 minutes, probably there would not be a lot of interesting things said.
That being said, Joe Rogan is a very experienced interviewer. He knows how to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Do most people know how to ask questions? I would argue that most people don't know how to ask questions.
But what I wanted to get to is I've noticed then like Lex Fridman is now, he publishes like the 3-hour conversation, but then he has another channel where it's like just snippets, and it's like 2 minutes out of this conversation about a very specific thing. And so that's sort of, I don't know if that's sort of what you were saying, Jason, to have like a funnel or something that it's a hook, right?
Yep, it's a hook. Well, those 5 minutes maybe to get people to listen to in the long format, right? But I'm saying that if you're going to have that conversation, like you need to think of that framework. How are you going to get people to feel trusted and talk authentically? I think if you interview people, even Ahmed, like, what do you think? If I told you like, hey, sign up for a 2-hour or 1 hour to 1 to 3 hour slot to go talk to somebody, is that compelling for you? I'm like,
of course.
Like maybe not. Like maybe after I had my Thanksgiving hangover meal and I'm like sitting on the couch and I can't move, right?
It's why we need to understand why we are doing that and what is our mission and vision and why would people would do that.
Yeah.
And maybe if you get testimonials to people to want to do that, like, oh my gosh, this was mind blowing. Like, but you're not there yet. Right.
I'm thinking like 20 minutes is like a nice enough, not too long, not too short, that you could like sort of start get what? Not convinced. Oh it's no, we lost him.
It's like when Ahmed needs to wash things. People ask him to do that, and we are asking you, Jason, to do that. It's like duties that you need to do, and you are like.
In the end, it's a test, right? Yeah. Who knows? I could be wrong, and I admit I don't know the answer, and I think part of that willingness is that you have a theory, test it out, right?
Yeah, of course, we don't want bad experience for people.
What happens when you go out to a nightclub? It's like you are like, oh, I'm going to meet new people, and I'll be all night out trying to meet new people.
Yeah, how many people have you actually met and stayed in contact at a nightclub?
Quite a while.
Yeah, me too.
Quite a number.
Yeah.
I would say my is like near zero, right? I don't know. What about you, Ahmed?
I think relative to the number of people I've spoken to, probably near zero. Very few. The few that I came in with.
So that being said, if I go, the thing is, I don't frequent nightclubs.
Yeah, same.
But like, if I went to one like repeatedly over a week and I saw them over again, you have a higher chance of, I think, starting that. And just like with meeting people, so it's all about those chance interactions. So maybe it's about 5 minutes speed dating things, and then you match people up, and then you start having like, oh, if you do decide to match up, here's a 10-minute slot you guys could talk, or a 20-minute slot you could talk, right? Because in the end, like, you know, like Juan, honestly, I'm not really interested in talking to you. Pauline, you're okay. But Ahmed, dude, we like gel. Like, let's, like, you don't want to force something that may not be initially there.
Yeah.
And I think you do want to uncover things that they may not know about, right? I think it's part of the framework too. Maybe part of it is a speed dating round where you're matching up, and then you kind of like, you go through different, like a round robin, and from there, like, oh, here's who you match with. They swiped right for you. And then it goes to a deeper conversation. And that's when you start then working down the bigger blocks. And then to unlock the true mastery level, right? That's, you know, you pay 10 ETH, and then you
and then you have to talk for as long as you want.
yeah, exactly. I need to actually go and send out some get some work done. But I hope this helped you guys out.
Yes.
It's good seeing you too, on man.
Good to see you, Jason. Good to see you.
I'd like to hear what you're doing with your other project with the it wasn't the DAO of DAOs. Were you working with that?
No, it was like a glass door type of thing for DAOs.
Oh, the glass, yeah, the glass. Okay, yeah, the glass door of DAOs, yeah. We kind of like to hear how that happens, but I need to run and actually get some stuff before I have to head out.
Okay, thanks
But was this useful, Juan, Pauline, or was this things that you guys have already discovered yourselves?
No, of course it was useful.
Always useful.
Yeah.
That's the right answer, though.
No, I'm serious. Even if you arrive to the same thing that we also did, which I don't think that's what happened, but even if that was the case, it's interesting to understand how or why you arrived to that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
Okay,
yeah.
I have to go. I have a meeting right now. So
Cool.
Good to see you, Pauline.
I also have a meeting. Oh yeah, all for climate. Yeah. Oh wait, Ahmed, are you still doing Glassdoor for now?
Hey, Jason. Still, yes, but we put it on pause a little bit because I just had a baby.
Ooh.
So
Oh.
yes, I've been quite busy.
I know you were pregnant.
Yeah, I know. I know, man. And you couldn't see. You couldn't see. So.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, man.
When he or he
Adam. Yeah.
Okay. And he born when?
April 22nd. So about almost 6 weeks.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
That's why having this new kernel block, I've not really had a chance to, this is the first time I've actually been on one of the calls. So
take care of your community.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was asking is because we started another project.
No, it's nice.
Which is about a tool to help people, citizens that would like to become activists, to find the projects that are in alignment with them.
Interesting.
So it's basically a matchmaking algorithm, but for citizens with impact DAOs or NGOs or nonprofits about climate and social issues. And I think maybe there could be some sort of
maybe
overlap, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But however, I do have to go.
Mate, it's lovely to see you.
Well, first of all, like, we are doing these conversations every week for this project, and for the other project, if that sounds like something interesting to you, we're doing conversations every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday at same time, same start time.
Yeah, same starting time.
Okay.
And you can find it also in the kernel conversations. It says from hopeless human to green-pilled region.
Lovely. You're great with words. You know, you're always, yeah, you're always surprising me. You know, you should before you go, you should do like a what were they called? The group thing. What's it called? The group conversation thing.
The group
There's a name. There's a name for it.
I don't know.
Juntos, the juntos, however you say it, right?
Yeah.
You should do one on like how to tell stories. Unless you've already done that. Have you? Have you done something like that?
Sort of, but we want to do more about that. Yeah.
Because I'd be interested. Just you're obviously very talented, and yeah, maybe you could do like a lesson on storytelling, right? And maybe.
Okay, so you're talking about like writing stories or like creating new stories.
Yeah, you can. It doesn't have. Yeah, it could be writing stories. It could be telling stories. It could be how you deliver stories. You know, just the beauty of it, right? It's in everything that we do as humans.
Yeah.
And it's linked to what you do with solidarity. It's linked with everything, business, whatever it is, right? I think that'd be interesting.
That's the third project we're working on, which is Holovi Lab, and it's about narrative. It's everything about narratives.
That sounds.
And we are talking with a small group of people that are also interested in this, like entertainment and narrative.
Yes, I remember we spoke about this actually very briefly a long time. Oh, we were ideating, right? So a lot of interesting ideas. I remember. Yeah, are you doing any conversations on that?
Yes, also Wednesday.
Okay, is that all on the conversations on Slack? I'm gonna catch up on Slack. I'm gonna sign up, and then I'll try and any of the ones I can attend, I'll comment.
Cool, excellent. Well,
cool.
So I'll be seeing you soon then.
Yeah, good to see you, Juan.
Likewise. Bye.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.